The third edition of Walkable Westchester is almost through its indexing. It should be out shortly around Thanksgiving time. I'm delighted to know that it's going to be finished. And as you can see from the picture on your screen, you can see the covers of the first two editions, and you can see the one for the third. So a little bit about the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference, in case you're not familiar with us. I like to say, ask us where to hike. Walt and I have been a member since 1974, and we became active in 1979. Westchester has a love affair with open space, and you can see what I've listed on the screen of part of the reason we have so much. I think the most important thing is that people want in Westchester have a strong desire to protect what remains of open space. So how many parks do we have? Well, in 2001, Walt and I figured we had 75 to 80 parks. It would take us 2 to 3 years. And, you know, that looked pretty doable. Fast forward to 2009, you can see how many parks we discovered. And if you look down that list, you can see in 2020, we've covered 237 parks. The number of miles of trails is more of an estimate. I was very good on how many miles of trails were in the first and the second edition. And this time I just said, there's just plain too many to keep track of. Really detailed. So this is a list of when some parks were established over the years. During the 1930s, when the Depression there was very little land that was saved, but gradually we've increased the number of parks, thanks for various reasons. And I would say in the last 20 years, it's land trusts and municipalities who have been really interested in making sure they have preserved open space. So what's new about Walkable 3? You will find things are in color. These two characters are at the Trailside Museum, and they're telling you, check things out. So the photos in the book, I think there are very few that are not new. The photos you will see tonight's presentation, there are a couple of them, including this one, are in the book, but I wanted to highlight some of the really wonderful photos that we've had. We also have something we've started called Short Trails, Short Descriptions. Because in Rockefeller Park, for instance, the trails are all less than 2 miles, and really taking up 4 or 5 lines to describe something that only goes 1/4 of a mile didn't make any sense. So my editor suggested we do tables, and there are 4 parks that have the tables. We also have included what you can do where, so that if you want to ride your bike, if you want to cross-country ski, if you happen to ride a horse, if you need an accessible trail, you will find those listed, and they tell you whether you can do it or not. And my editor, Jim Simpson, I don't know where he got all these ideas, but there's tons of history and lore that's included in the sidebars. Here's an example of a map, the new color maps, and that's Britton Brook, which is a Sawmill River Audubon property. So big improvement over the black and white ones. The full color section title pages. Are we getting an echo? At least I am. And this one happens to be in Mount Holly Sanctuary. Yeah. Okay. So when I was talking about short trails, short descriptions, this is what one looks like that's in Rockefeller. And I think you can tell what you're likely to see. Here is a sample of what you can do where. Okay. The sidebars. They're sort of 2 types. We have a nice lengthy one that explains something with nature or with history. And we also have what my editor, Jim Simpson, calls a kicker, where we have just a short description that doesn't warrant the longer ones. But all photos have something with them, not just put up to look at. So what else was changed in 20 years? Well, the ability to make maps. I know that Sawmill River Audubon puts theirs on Avenza for people to download. The number of land trusts have definitely increased. What I've noticed is there's been a more local involvement in the care of trails. For instance, the Nature Conservancy turned over 17 out of their 20 properties to be managed by locals. The internet as a platform to do research just vastly expanded. It allowed us to find out things. For instance, why was a park named after someone? Well, you go in, you find an obituary, and you get the information that you need. And with the photographs, the better digital cameras have allowed us to have some really good photographs, especially since we went to color. By the way, the cost of the book has increased from $25 to $30 because the cost of color is higher. For those of you who are familiar with the book, we do things by size because of the disproportionate number of parks that are north of 287. So small ones, we call them tiny treasures. This picture happens to be down in Halsey Pond, which is in Irvington. It's a town, it's a village park, and they say village residents only, but they really don't check. The only ones that check are near the sound or along the river where people want to have access to the water, but the cops never come to check. This is a new one, the Cross River Dam. Actually, it was reopened to the public in 12, and I didn't realize it. It had been closed after 9/11. It's part of the New York City water supply, and I've been there when the trees are out, the trees are in color, and there aren't very much in the way of trees. So it's great views and accessible across it, and there's two ways to get to it, obviously, one from each end of the dam. Old Golden's Bridge Trail goes through Golden's Bridge and through DEP property. It passes this lovely bridge, which rail traffic went over. It was the Untermyer Park spur, part of the Putnam line. It's closed to any kind of traffic, even for foot traffic. I don't think I would like to walk on it. Peabody Outdoor Classroom is another new one this time. It's owned by the Tarrytown School District. Was given to the school, and they use it for outdoor classroom. It's a former brick factory. Lots of history about it is in our book. Russell Preserve is another new one. It's over in Pound Ridge. It claims it has 100 species of birds that visit it, and even in that quarter mile, there's a lot to see. And you have this peninsula that goes out between wetlands and between stream. Next size up of parks were called pocket parks. And I like to think that they're nearby, so people might travel a little further to visit them, or when you have to go visit Aunt Sally, who's in a nursing home, you stop and take a quick walk at one of these. This picture happens to be from Rose, which is managed, I believe, by the Westchester Land Trust. Halle Ravine Nature Preserve is a really lovely place to visit. If you want to have minimal parking, this place has it. There are very few spaces. You're not going to be parking on this narrow road, but it's absolutely gorgeous in there. Pound Ridge Land Trust manages it. It used to be a Nature Conservancy one, but the Hemlock Ravine still has a few hemlocks left, and the trees in it are absolutely beautiful. Somers Rail Trail was part of the Untermyer Park spur also. But, when I showed the Golden's Bridge, Kennedy High School is between the Somers Rail Trail and that bridge, so that there is a gap in making any attempt to open it. the rail trail goes through the DEP property, and if you look to the left of the screen of the picture, you will see the flat top rocks that indicate this is DEP property. You can see the 3 bands on the tree, and if you look in the upper right corner, you can just barely see that there's a house there. So when I took this picture, it was just a neat one, and then Walt pointed out, oh, did you notice that the DEP property is right, the line is right there. Harrington Greenway is down in White Plains, and it's along the former New York, Boston, and Westchester Railroad, which was a failed attempt to build a commuter line. I found out too late to put in the book, there's a really nice section that has opened on the north part from Gedney Way and ends up just about 2 or 3 blocks north of what I've described in the book. But it was too late for me to change the map, which couldn't be made any bigger, and I didn't have any space to include more. You can find remnants of this around the county. It's kind of fun to go scouting. The picture on the left is a bridge that has about a 1/4 mile park on the top of it. The bridge was designed by the same person who designed New York, the Grand Central Terminal. And ironically, the line failed because it never went to Grand Central. The picture on the right is down in Nature Study Woods. And Wilson's Woods also has one of the remains of the railroad. But they're around the county, and you can, if you go onto Google and sort of follow it along, you will find it, which is how I found the one down near Wilson's Woods. This one was never on our radar screen at all, and we put it in this time. There's a mile of trails in Wilson's Woods, so it's great for people who live nearby. And they've started the Pelham Lake Scenic Byway, and this is Pelham Lake, and the hutch is right close to it, so you hear the hutch, inches literally. The egret that's there wasn't there when we walked in, and I saw it and I go, oh, very, very quietly I began to walk, and I snapped my picture and snapped another one and hoping that I could get him to stay, which he did. He never moved. I left before he did, or she. So Morning Strolls is the next size up. This picture is from Glazer Preserve, which is in the town of Newcastle. Burden Preserve is also another one that's owned in the town of Newcastle. It's south of Mount Kisco, and it has an incredible array of equisetum. I've never seen so much. And one of my photographers, Dave Margulis, took this picture with the sunlight shining through, and it's not in the book, but I couldn't resist putting it into this presentation. In Cross River, there is a high school, the John Jay High School and Middle School. They didn't have a cross-country trail at all. So they decided to build one. And they got an easement on adjacent property. They raised money. It was built by volunteers. When I wanted to find out what its real name was, because people would call it the John Jay Trail, I heard it was the cross-country trail. What is it? Well, the school, when I needed to know, the last thing anybody could answer, because this is right before the schools were supposed to open, was what is the name? So I just picked something that seemed to work, and so it's called the Community and Cross Country Trail. It's absolutely a lovely place to walk. Hunter Brook Preserve is, I say Huntersville, which is a part of Yorktown, and it's a lovely walk beside a stream. You can go by wetlands. This happens to be where there are evergreens. Unfortunately, there's areas that get really, really wet, as much as a foot, and is flooded. And I know that the Westchester Land Trust is looking to move the trail over. It still will go by these trees. Untermyer Park, I sort of put together with Lamar because they're next to each other and they make a nice trip between the two. It's down in Yonkers. It didn't look so good for many years. And the next slide shows back in probably 15 years ago what it looked like. Now, granted, the leaves aren't on the trees, and I'm looking up the stairs instead of down, but you can see how it's transformed in the 15 years. They have a group of people who come in and do volunteer gardening there, and the place is absolutely lovely. They do limit the number of people who come in, and there are portions of it that are handicapped accessible. Obviously not the steps. The next size are afternoon jaunts. And here you get more miles of trails and you can spend more time outside. I like to think of them, they're sort of a 15 to 30 minute drive, because who wants to just go drive 30 minutes to only walk three miles when it takes an hour and a half. That picture is in Rockwood Hall and was taken by my grandson. George's Island Park up in Montrose. You get some great river views. There's wetlands, there's woodlands, and there's the former brickyard that is there. I don't show this picture, but previous edition showed Lake Whoopee, which was one of the clay pits. This is a picture taken by one of your members, Bonnie Coe, of the eagles roosting there. I think it's a fantastic picture. Another one of hers is in the book. Hardscrabble Wilderness Areas down in Pleasantville. It's kind of neat because there's two places that you can enter. Neither have much space to park, which then, of course, is going to limit the number of people that are there. But the one that's off of Hardscrabble Road, and the directions how to find it are in the book. You can get in, it's a half a mile walk in, but you avoid all the parking problems that are down by Dogwood Lane, which is off of Route 117. So last spring, I was out, this was in spring of 19, I was out just as the skunk cabbage came out, and I thought that, boy, I've never seen skunk cabbage growing on roots of trees, but it was just kind of neat, different place. So Mount Halle Sanctuary is up in North Salem. And when I tried several times to get pictures there, I just never succeeded. So I sent Rick Fisher out to get photos. So this is one that he took. And this is the other, one of the others. And then his was on, he has two photos that are on the section title pages. But he fell in love with the place and he said, this was just such a neat place. And so a lot depends upon what day you're there. This was a misty day. And of course, with the lovely fall colors. That was taken a year ago. So Rockwood Hall is in Sleepy Hollow. It's William Rockefeller's estate. The building there was torn down and the stone from it was thrown into the river, which is kind of ironic since the Rockefellers are people who are interested in conservation and associated things with it. It can be very crowded, but there are also places that you can go and get away from the crowds. So this is just a photo of some of the remains of the foundation of the building. Ward Acres Park is in New Rochelle, and for years it was neglected. And in the last, I think, 6 months, a new group has formed called the Ward Acres Conservancy, and they're working with the Trail Conference to take care of the trails and to get them blazed. And I believe the Audubon Society that's down along the Sound is working with them to develop habitat that will attract birds. They have a dog park there, they have a community garden. It's pretty flat, but it's an interesting place to walk. The former owner of the estate raised horses, and his son continued, and there was the horse graveyard is there. So Ethelberta obviously is buried there, and Bellini, who is an offspring. I have no idea what the 213 1/4 means. I'm not into horse racing, so, but it's just sort of neat to see these huge slabs of rock there that are monuments to the horses. So let's go up to day trippers. The picture here is from Baxter Park, which is up in the northwest corner. Lots of open area there. In the summer, there are tons of wildflowers. I imagine the birding is pretty good along the edges of all of the fields. None of the trails are marked, but you can wander at will and expect to see some equestrians. Butler Memorial Sanctuary is a Nature Conservancy property. It was one of the 3 that they kept. They reconfigured all of their trails this spring, and they are really a joy to walk on. Their loops. They have a big parking lot, but once you enter, their trails spread fairly quickly, and so you don't meet many people while you're hiking, which is nice. A lot of us want to hike and not run into people all the time. They have a grandstand to watch the bird migrations over the sound, and they have someone who is there who can point out the different birds as they're flying by. I'm not a birder, neither is my husband, but I was there once and they say, oh, there's some sharp-shinned hawks. And it's like, how can you tell by the spots in the sky? My eyes aren't that good, but you know, I'll believe them. So Meyer's Preserve is also a Nature Conservancy one. It's the 3rd one that they continued. This is a photo that Dave did and is on the cover, the title page cover for Day Trippers. I was there in the summertime and I walked out into this field and such a cacophony of insect sounds, these flowers, it was just really neat to walk through the meadow. And then Dave and I returned and he was very patient to try to get an insect on top of a flower. Sylvan Glen Park Preserve is in Yorktown. It's near where I live. Technically, it's in Mohegan Lake. Okay. It's not anywhere near the lake. And it boasts an oak tree, which is fairly big. It's not as big as the one that's over in Bedford, but still people like to visit it. It takes about 6 people to put their arms around it. And it's supposed to get a little bit of help from an arborist to get some of the dead limbs off of it so that it can be better. It is on county-owned land, but not protected, and would like to see that it is protected. Sylvan Glen is also the site of a quarry that supplied the stone for the Cathedral of St. John the Divine down in the city. So there's some stones there to the left, and the lower right-hand corner are the remains, and they're buried and they will not unbury. These are wheels of the carts that were used to carry the stone from the quarry rim all the way down to the cutting sheds. Yorktown Trail Town is a local committee. By the way, I live in Yorktown. And they are putting up interpretive signs. They got a grant to do that. Hopefully, they're hoping this winter. I think it'll probably be next spring, and it explains the coring operations. And oh, by the way, there's a pair of turkey vultures, no, black vultures that live on one of the piles of stone. Westmoreland Sanctuary is another one that has a big parking lot, and the trails spread out fairly quickly. The downside there is the trails lead downhill from the visitor center, so you have to come back up, but it's a lovely place to walk. And during COVID last spring, yes, you saw people, but you were so spread out, it didn't make any difference that the parking lot was full. And this is along the Brookside Trail. So as we move to large parks, some of them have had problems with visitors, like every park has this spring. So the picture you have here is at Teatown. It's on Hidden Lake. And that is a house is from the Revolutionary War. It's occupied but owned by Teatown, and they rent it out. Anglefly is in Somers, and it's town-owned property. Some of it is owned by New York State DEP, but it's managed by the Somers Land Trust, and they're the folks that built all the trails there. So this is up near an old house. I call this the Navinese photo. That's along Anglefly Brook. Mountain Lakes is up in North Salem, in the furthest north and east corner of the county. There is a summer camp there. They bring children who are in foster care so they can have an outdoor experience and in many cases be with their siblings. It's a place that I think people don't realize how extensive the trail system is. In the fall, it's really nice to go there. And as you can see, it looks really inviting in the winter. I don't think I'd want a picnic at the picnic table, but this leads into the adjacent properties that are owned by North Salem Open Land Foundation. Rockefeller State Park Reserve is not the biggest one. It's the second largest amount of trails that we have in the county. This particular trail is on the Brothers Path. It was very heavily used this spring. They had a lot of problems with people parking along the roads and ended up closing some of the parking lots to limit the number of people. Not only can you go through the woodlands, you also can walk through the farmland areas. And these sheep were waiting to be shorn. This was last spring before the leaves came out. Teatown also had big parking problems. And I'll give you a clue. If you go to Cliffdale Farm area, and that's where this picture was taken, and going through fields, it's nowhere near as crowded. Go during the week if you can. There's nice trails there. Walt and I were there not too long ago and had a lovely hike and didn't see anybody. This is Teatown Lake. So Ward Pound Ridge is the biggest one. This picture here was what the book designer, when she took one look at it and said, I have an idea to use for all of the section title pages. And so this one this is one, we have something that we put on underneath it, the lower part that describes what the different sections are. It's county owned. They have some art in the park they do. There's a CCC camp. And there's tons of ways that you can walk and enjoy it. It gets very crowded in the nice weather because people come there to picnic and to hang out. And you can't park along the roads that surround it. They're too narrow and the local police will ticket you. This is one of my favorite pictures. It's taken by Fred Stern. This one will appear in the book. It's on top of Leatherman's Cave. And it has a very nice view. And I must say, thank you, Dave. I mean, Fred. It looks like I just want to sit there and enjoy the view forever. This is out of the Kimberly Bridge area. It's taken about 2 years ago, one spring. So linear corridors are north-south except for one, which is the Teatown Kitchawan Trail. So this picture is along the South County Trailway. You're looking across at Macy Park. Along the river, there are lots of small parks. This little one is Crawbucky. It was built on property that was supposed to be part of an interstate and never was built. And I love the way the X marks the spot, and you actually have a bench there that you could sit on if you wanted to. The Peekskill Riverfront Green, they've developed an incredible amount of trails. It's long and skinny. This walkway that you see to the left extends all the way around this portion of the bay. When Walt and I were out walking on this, there was a local policeman patrolling on his bicycle. And I made the comment, boy, do you have an interesting beat? He says, yeah, I have trouble imagining how good how bad it could be. So it's really a nice place to go for a walk. People hang out there, but this is going south from the train station. Kingsland Point County Park is right near the Como Bridge. The lighthouse there is open for tours. I'm not sure with COVID how frequent they offer them or whether you can arrange to go there. The area between the lighthouse and the Teatown Railroad Station is being developed in some pretty fancy condos, and that will have walkways that you can go. You can continue from Kingsland all the way down to the Teatown train station. So Riverwalk is a part of the Hudson River Valley Greenway that's in Westchester County. And this is in Croton Point. Just an interesting piece of work that people have piled up the stones. And I don't know how long it'll last, or I don't know how long if it's still there. But Croton has developed riverfront walk that's really lovely. Bronx River Reservation is the name of the park, but it's the Bronx River pathway that you would use to walk on. This picture was taken on the new section that goes from Hartsdale all the way down to Scarsdale. It used to be a road walk. So Walt and I went before it was open. I'm not sure whether it's open yet, but it's really lovely. They have extensive stonework. If you look in the lower left corner, you can see where they're going to install some fencing, and that's the Bronx River there. Did I go too fast? Yeah. The Bronx River pathway starts at the Kisco Dam. So this reopened. It had been closed. It is not open to any kind of vehicular traffic, but is open to pedestrian. So I took these two pictures the same day. One is looking over the reservoir. The other one is down looking over the plaza. And I can tell you it was very cold on that. It was cold on the dam that day. The Empire State Trail uses the North County and South County trailways in Westchester County. This is a trail that is going throughout the whole state. It goes up to the Canadian border and it goes west along the Erie Canalway to Buffalo. So we have 35.6 miles of it. It's delightful. Here's a railroad bridge. It never fails to impress me, no matter what the season. So whether it's a snowy day or when the flowers, the trees are just coming out, whether it's along the piece that was missing that's down near Elmsford, or it's in the fall. This was taken 2 weeks ago along the piece that is north from Yorktown Heights. The Mohansic Trailway, most of you probably have never heard of. This was a spur from the Putnam line that went over to what was to be a mental asylum in what is now FDR State Park. It is short. It's only a mile. It goes through FDR and then crosses into town property on a long boardwalk that was built by volunteers. So there's some of the volunteers who were building it. This was 564 feet long, 8 feet wide. And as the volunteer in charge of doing this, I would joke with the local lumber company and say, how many grandmothers come in and buy 55,000 pounds of lumber? And you can see how we moved things down as the boardwalk was built using a furniture dolly. The old Croton Aqueduct. It's the longest of the long distance trails in the county, and of course runs north to south. There is a small portion that goes east-west from the Croton Dam over towards just south of Croton. Part of the refurbishing at Untermyer was to clean these statues up. There is a unicorn that is minus his horn, and there's a lion. And I have a picture when they didn't look so hot. And this was taken along the old Croton Aqueduct because there's steps up into Untermyer. There are different structures along the OCA. Lyndhurst is the castle that's there, Jay Gould's property, and then you have the ventilators that were along the way. There are 23 of them. Many are numbered. I don't know what number this one is. I mentioned Teatown Kitchawan Trails, the only east-west one. This was taken actually in Teatown on one of the few snowy days that we had. It connects to the North County Trailway and it goes through Kitchawan Preserve. The TK Blaze is a white one. The green is the Briarcliff Peekskill Trailway. The last grouping, I should say the next to the last grouping of trails are trail systems. This picture was taken at Hayfield on Keeler, which is North Salem Open Land Foundation property. And they do ask you not to fly airplanes. In Mount Kisco, there's the History and Nature Trails. The upper right-hand corner is the wetlands one that is located off of the Lidoto Road. I was there in the spring. The number of birds that I could hear, I can't identify by song, was amazing. It's really pretty. It looks like they are going to extend it, but nothing yet has been done. The other portion of it nearby is the Kirby, through Kirbyville, which happened to have a mill in it. That plaque is on a millstone that was used there. And they also have other trails on Kisco Mountain and then some stuff through town. Adjacent to Mount Kisco is the Marsh Memorial Sanctuary. It has a variety of habitats. This pond is particularly lovely. This is a not-for-profit, and the trails are not really well marked there, but it would be difficult to get lost. So there are other places to walk. We have a list and some suggestions. They're not described in any way. This shot happens to be at Mohansic Golf Course, and it was as the sun was setting. This is over Cedar Lane Park in Ossining. The structure you see is their art center. It's handicapped accessible along here. And another shot is on the cover title page for other places to walk. So I'd sort of like to close. There are many ways to enjoy the parks in Westchester. I saw this guy down in Rockefeller last spring when we were walking. But you can take some pictures. That's Dave, and that's my grandson. Both of them, I only had one shot at that to turn around very quickly after that. But it's a favorite picture of mine. This is a dog's eye view of a bridge. So if you walk your dog, that's what they're going to see. You can see flora. This is more flora. A number of us happen to like fungus. You get to see fauna. I like rocks, and there are lots of interesting ones around. And by the way, it's hard to, even though you take pictures of interesting rocks, to some people they aren't very interesting, but I love to see the undulations that occur in many of these. The upper one is from Silver Lake, the lower one is from Rockefeller. You might want to find places to sit, and it looks like people are creative. You have a stump and a dead tree, and then you have a log that someone has carved out. Or if you're like Walt, you take advantage of a very hot day trying to bicycle on the Cuomo Bridge. So at this point, we'd like to say thank you for helping for all these people. They did a variety of things, whether it was checking trails, helping with copy editing. There's some people, there were some great photographs submitted. These are people who submitted photographs. By the way, all the photographs in the books are they're credited to people. And then I need to make a larger thanks to Jim Simpson, who was my editor, researcher, and writer of Sidebars. Dave, who did all the editing and selecting enough photos to give our book designer things. And Eileen West, who converted PDFs. She checked trails, she copy edited, and would go out on short notice when I needed something checked down county. So I hope you all enjoy walking in Westchester as much as Walt and I do. And I'm going to turn this back over to Anne, who will read some of the questions that people had from the chat.